Len, you joined the Brisbane YMCA in the 1950s and you joined the Triangles Club.
That's right.
What was that about?
Well, early 1953, I was on the way to tennis one night. I popped in and thought I might join this organisation. It sounded fantastic. Then they suggested the Triangles Club. That was a group of young men. The Triangle, of course, the YMCA Triangle. And we used to have formal meetings. We had office bearers. We had president, secretary, treasurer, bulletin editors. We'd start with a devotional. We'd have a discussion about what business. We did some service work and what we do, how we do it, how we'd raise the money. And then we'd have a speaker sometimes. And then we'd go down for a gym program. And that was hilarious because there was our wonderful Frank Vig at the time trying to get us to do vaulting horse and all those sorts of things. And I was one of the biggest dunces there, I can tell you. But that's what we did. We went for a swim, but we also had great fellowship. We used to visit each other's places, we'd have socials, we'd do all sorts of... It really was a coming together, and it was a development time for me and for those young men involved.
How many people in the club?
As I recall, it would have been 25, 30.
And the club was for young men still at school or employed?
No, we were young adults, we were employed young people. We came from a variety of backgrounds. There were tradesmen, there were office workers, there were warehouse workers, there were young engineers. It was a really vibrant group.
Could you tell me a bit more about some of the things you were doing? You listed the profile of activities before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, things like we needed to raise some funds to do some good works. So we used to collect newspapers, tons of newspapers. We used to collect bottles. We used to store them down in the basement of the YMCA. And we'd sell them to butchers and bakers and fish and chip merchants who in those days could use newsprint. And then we'd go out and one thing we did for the Y was we went down to Camp Warraree and we helped build a basketball court, all voluntarily, weekends.
And the Triangles was one club. There were other clubs at the time too.
There were a number of clubs. There were Live Wires, there were Vikings Club, there were Wyverns clubs, there was a YY Club. And that was the forerunner of young men and women coming together in these organisations. There were guys from the YMCA and girls from the YWCA. It also almost became a marriage bureau.
And were sort of lasting friendships created there?
Absolutely.
Obviously, married relationships turned up.
Married relationship, lasting friendships. There were young men and women from that era that we still keep in touch with very closely.